Rain carved silver streaks across the cracked window of the old café, blurring the world outside into a gray watercolor of rushing cars and distant lights. Inside, a young woman stood shaking, her hands red from the cold, her clothes worn thin enough that the heater barely made a difference. She believed the café was empty, the lights were dim, the chairs half-stacked at closing time. She wiped the table slowly, fighting the exhaustion that pressed like weight on her chest. Her life had been a series of storms, and tonight felt like the longest one yet. What she didn't know was that behind a column at the back table, where shadows made the corner look deserted, a man silently watched her every move, his eyes filled not with judgment, but with something deeper, something that would change her life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and miracles that appear when we least expect them, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything. Her name was Alina, 23, fragile in the way glass is fragile, yet somehow unbroken the way mountains are unbroken. She worked 2 jobs, barely slept, and carried her mother's medical reports folded into the back pocket of her apron like a weight that pulled her back every time she tried to breathe freely. Her mother had been everything, her laughter, her courage, her home, and now machines breathed for her in a sterile hospital room that Alina visited every night after work, whispering stories to keep hope alive. Hospital bills had drowned their savings. Their tiny apartment was colder than the café, and sometimes Alina would pretend the hum of refrigerators sounded like her mother humming while cooking dinner. It was the only thing that helped her fall asleep. Tonight, something inside her cracked a little more. She paused after wiping the last table and leaned against the counter, pressing her forehead into her wrist, trying to swallow the sob that rose like fire in her throat. She thought no one was watching. She whispered apologies into the empty air, apologizing to her mother, to her own tiredness, to a dream she once had of becoming a designer instead of a waitress trying not to collapse. She let herself cry for exactly 13 seconds, then wiped her face, forced a small smile, and kept working. She always did that, break in silence, rebuild in silence. The man in the shadows had been watching for weeks. His name was Adrian Belrose, known to the world as an untouchable millionaire, famous for skyscrapers with his initials embedded in the steel. People imagined his world as luxury and glass towers, but wealth had never filled the emptiness in his heart since his wife passed away 5 years earlier. Grief had turned him quiet. He stopped attending glamorous events and started visiting small corners of the city, watching people, trying to understand what kept them breathing even when life gave no promises. One night, he stumbled into the café just before closing time and saw Alina cleaning the floors with a bruised strength that caught his pulse like a fist. Something about her, the quiet way she fought, reminded him of the woman he loved. So he returned every night, sitting silently, observing her resilience. Tonight, he watched her break, watched her tears fall, watched her rebuild herself in seconds. And he realized that sometimes, strength is not loud. Sometimes, it is found in a girl wiping her face alone under dim lights. When Alina finished cleaning, she counted the coins she had earned in tips, barely enough for a bus ride and a small packet of food. She whispered a promise to her mother in her mind, stepped outside, and walked through the rain because the bus fare needed to be saved for the morning. Adrian followed her from a distance, watching her stop by a street vendor and ask if she could take the leftover bread no one bought. The vendor said yes, and she thanked him as though she had just been gifted the world. With wet hair clinging to her cheeks, she headed toward the hospital, passing through crowds like a ghost. Nobody noticed. In the hospital room, she sat beside her mother, speaking softly about her day. She smiled through sadness, describing how the rain sounded like music on the café windows. She held her mother's cold hand, pretending she felt it squeeze back. She placed the bread beside the hospital bed and whispered that she wasn't giving up, no matter how heavy things became. Adrian stood outside the glass window, unseen, hearing every word. Something inside him finally broke open, not with pain, but with clarity. He realized that the world was full of people like Alina, fighting in silence, hoping in silence, loving in silence. Money had never shown him that. Humanity did. The next morning, Alina arrived at the cafe only to find confusion in her manager's eyes. A stranger had visited earlier, someone powerful, and had paid off months of unpaid bills for her mother under her name. Alina stood frozen, unable to breathe, feeling hope hit her like a storm she wasn't ready for. She ran to the hospital, where she found new machines helping her mother breathe better, a specialist reviewing her case, and a letter pinned to the pillow. It had no signature, only a line, "You are not alone. Keep fighting." Tears shook her entire body. For the first time in months, she sank into the chair, not out of exhaustion, but relief. She didn't know the man sitting in the garden below, watching her smile through the window, allowing himself to feel alive again. Weeks passed. Her mother slowly improved, and Alina returned to the cafe with a lightness that made her glow. She still worked hard, still counted every coin, but her eyes held the sunrise in them now. Adrian continued watching from afar, never revealing himself. His gift was not for gratitude, but for the quiet belief that people like Alina deserved a chance. He wasn't saving her, he was helping her save herself. One evening, Alina stood by the window of the cafe and looked out at the rain with a smile. She believed miracles happen through strangers we never meet. She believed kindness was real, even when it came without a face. She believed second chances belonged to those who never stopped trying. And somewhere out there, a man who once felt like a ghost in his own life started breathing again because her strength showed him that love does not end, it changes shape and continues forward. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support can bring more real, emotional stories to those who need them. Special request, comment below what part of the story inspired you the most. And so, in a city where strangers pass like shadows, two lives changed without a word spoken between them. She thought she was alone, but the millionaire watching her saw everything, her pain, her courage, her beauty, and her fight, and in helping her, he rediscovered the meaning of his own breathing heart.